They thought inviting his black ex-wife to the family gala would be the perfect humiliation. Little did they know she'd walk in as the secret billionaire owner of their failing empire, wearing a crown they could never afford, about to reclaim not just her dignity, but his heart. If you love stories about karma, revenge, and unexpected plot twists, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Hit that like button if you're ready for some serious justice, and don't forget to subscribe because trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. My name is Emma Carter, and 2 years ago I thought I knew what heartbreak felt like. I was wrong. Real heartbreak isn't just when someone leaves you. It's when they let their family destroy you while they stand there and watch. I used to be Emma Thompson, married to David, the heir to one of the most powerful industrial empires in the country. God, I loved that man with every fiber of my being. But love, I learned, isn't always enough when you're fighting a war you didn't even know you'd entered. His mother, Linda Thompson, never saw me as good enough. From the moment David brought me home, she made it clear that a black woman had no place in their pristine white legacy. The comments started small little digs about my background, my education, my exotic looks. Then they grew sharper, more deliberate. She'd smile sweetly while asking if I was sure I understood their family values, or suggest that maybe I'd be more comfortable somewhere else. David would apologize privately, promise things would change, but publicly, he stayed silent. Every family dinner where his mother made her pointed remarks. Every charity event where I was introduced as David's little phase. Every board meeting where I was excluded from conversations about our family's future. He let it all happen. The divorce was brutal. They painted me as the gold digger who'd trapped their precious son, the outsider who never belonged. 2 years of marriage reduced to tabloid headlines about the failed social climber. I walked away with nothing but my dignity and a heart so shattered I didn't think it would ever heal. But here's what they didn't know about me. I don't stay down. While they were celebrating their victory, I was building something they couldn't even imagine. I threw myself into work, into investments, into creating the life I should have had all along. I disappeared from their world completely, and they assumed I'd crawled away to lick my wounds forever. Then yesterday something arrived that changed everything. An elegant ivory envelope with gold embossing, delivered by courier to my penthouse office. Inside was an invitation to the Thompson Industries annual charity gala, the social event of the year, where Linda would undoubtedly parade David's new fiancée, some blonde socialite named Sarah who checked all their boxes. First I laughed. The audacity was almost impressive. Then I realized what this really was. They were inviting me as entertainment, expecting me to show up desperate and broken so they could have one final laugh at my expense. They wanted to see me diminished, to confirm their narrative that I was never worthy of their world. What they didn't understand was that I'd spent 2 years becoming someone they could never have imagined. I wasn't the same woman who'd left their mansion in tears. I was something far more dangerous. I was someone who'd learned to play their game better than they ever could. And I was about to show them exactly what they'd thrown away. What they didn't know, what nobody knew, was that while they were busy celebrating my supposed downfall, I had been quietly building an empire that would make their old money look like pocket change. For 2 years I'd been operating under my maiden name, Emma Carter, as the CEO and founder of Carter Holdings. While David was playing heir apparent, I was acquiring luxury hotels, tech startups, and real estate portfolios across 3 continents. Forbes had featured me on their cover twice in the past year alone, calling me the mystery mogul who's reshaping global luxury markets. But here's the part that would absolutely destroy them. I'd been secretly buying shares of Thompson Industries for the past year. Every time their stock dipped because of David's poor business decisions, every time they needed capital because of Linda's expensive vanity projects, I was there. Anonymous purchases through shell companies, quiet acquisitions that flew completely under their radar. My assistant Mike walked into my office that afternoon with a folder that made my heart race. "Congratulations, Ms. Carter," he said with a knowing smile. "As of this morning's purchase, you now own 52% of Thompson Industries. You have controlling interest." I sat there for a moment, letting that reality sink in. The company that had treated me like an outsider, the family that had made me feel like I didn't belong, I now own them. Literally. They have no idea, do they? Yes. Not a clue. The stock purchases were spread across so many entities, they just see healthy investor interest. They probably think they're doing great, Mike chuckled. What's the plan for tomorrow night? That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. This wasn't just about showing up. This was about making a statement that would echo through their social circles for years to come. I called my stylist, my jeweler, my security team. If they wanted a show, I was going to give them one they'd never forget. The dress I chose cost more than most people's cars, a custom creation in midnight blue that fit me like it was painted on. But the real statement pieces were the diamonds, a necklace and earring set that had once belonged to royalty, purchased at auction for an amount that would make their jaws drop. Each stone told a story of queens who'd ruled empires, and tomorrow night I would wear their legacy with pride. I arranged for a custom black Rolls-Royce, complete with a security detail that screamed success. But the most important preparation was mental. I practiced my speech, rehearsed my reveals, and steeled myself for the moment when I would walk back into their world. Not as David's rejected ex-wife, but as the woman who literally owned their future. They thought they were inviting a broken woman to their party. Instead, they just invited their new boss. And I was going to enjoy every single second of their shock. The moment my Rolls-Royce pulled up to the luxury hotel ballroom, I could see them through the grand windows. Linda, Jessica, and David himself, all positioned perfectly to watch my arrival. They were probably expecting me to stumble out of an Uber, maybe wearing some discount dress, looking desperate and out of place. The anticipation on their faces was almost comical. What they got instead was something entirely different. My security detail stepped out first, two impeccably dressed professionals who moved with a kind of precision that screamed serious money. Then my driver opened my door, and I emerged like I owned the world. Because in many ways I did. The midnight blue dress hugged every curve, the royal diamonds caught the light like captured stars, and my confidence radiated from every step. I could literally hear the whispers start as I walked up the marble steps. Guests who had been chatting casually suddenly stopped mid-sentence. Phones came out, and the energy in the room shifted completely. Is that Emma? She looks incredible. What has she been doing? Those diamonds. My God, are those real? Through the window, I watched Linda's smug smile falter. Jessica's mouth actually fell open. But David just stared like he'd seen a ghost. Not the ghost of who I used to be, but the revelation of who I'd become. I walked through those doors like I was walking into my own palace. Because in a way I was. The same people who had whispered about my place in their world 2 years ago were now craning their necks to get a better look at me. The same social circle that had written me off as a gold digger was now buzzing with curiosity about my obvious success. Emma, Linda approached with that fake smile she'd perfected, but I could see the panic behind her eyes. What a surprise to see you here. Patricia, I replied with a warmth that was both genuine and strategic. Thank you for the invitation. What a lovely evening you've organized. The conversation around us had died to a murmur. Everyone was listening, waiting to see if this would be the dramatic confrontation they'd been hoping for. But I wasn't here to make a scene. Not yet, anyway. Sarah, David's fiancée, appeared at his side, looking every inch the society princess she was bred to be. But I could see the uncertainty in her eyes as she took in my transformation. This wasn't the broken woman she'd probably heard stories about. You look. David started, then stopped, clearly struggling for words. Different. I suggested with a smile that held secrets. Thank you. Success has been very kind to me. The understatement of the century, but they didn't need to know that yet. I was just getting started, and the night was still young. The real show was about to begin. For the first hour I played the perfect guest. I mingled gracefully, complimented the decor, and made polite conversation about my little business ventures with curious socialites. I could feel David's eyes on me constantly, and Linda kept trying to steer conversations toward my past, fishing for signs of the desperation they'd expected to find. But then I decided it was time. I approached the small stage where the evening speeches were being given and asked for a moment to address the crowd. Linda looked alarmed but couldn't refuse without causing a scene. The room gradually quieted as I took the microphone. Every face turned toward me with anticipation. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice carrying the confidence of someone who belonged exactly where she stood. "I want to thank the Thompson family for this beautiful celebration and for the unexpected invitation that brought me here tonight." I paused, letting my eyes sweep across the room, landing briefly on each member of David's family. 2 years ago, I left this world thinking I wasn't worthy of it. I was told in many different ways that I didn't belong in your circles, that I didn't understand your values, that I was reaching beyond my station. Linda's face had gone pale. But sometimes rejection becomes the greatest gift you never knew you needed. The room was completely silent now. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving. During my absence, I've had the pleasure of building something rather special. Some of you might know my company, Carter Holdings. We've been quite successful in acquiring properties, businesses, and investments around the world. I smiled as recognition dawned on several faces. But what you might not know is that we've been particularly interested in one company here in our hometown. David's expression shifted from confusion to dawning horror. As of this morning, I'm pleased to announce that Carter Holdings, which is to say I now own 52% of Thompson Industries. I am effectively the majority shareholder and controlling interest of this family's legacy. The silence that followed was deafening. Then the whispers exploded like a dam bursting. Linda actually swayed on her feet. Jessica grabbed her brother's arm. David looked like he'd been struck by lightning. "The irony isn't lost on me," I continued, my voice cutting through the chaos. "The woman you deemed unworthy of your family name now literally owns your family business. The gold digger you thought you'd escaped has become the golden goose you never saw coming." I set the microphone down gently and stepped away from the stage. The room erupted in shocked conversations, phones coming out to capture this moment, society reporters scrambling to understand what they'd just witnessed. Linda stumbled toward me, her face a mixture of rage and panic. "This is impossible. You can't just..." "Actually, I can," I replied calmly. And I did. The tables hadn't just turned. They'd been completely rebuilt. The chaos that followed my revelation was everything I'd imagined and more. Guests were pulling out phones, society reporters were frantically taking notes, and the Thompson family looked like they'd been struck by a collective lightning bolt. But through it all, David kept staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read: shock, admiration, and something that looked dangerously like the love I'd once known. He approached me as the crowd began to disperse into smaller groups of frantic whispers. "Emma, I need to talk to you. Privately." I followed him to a quiet corner of the ballroom, the same space where I'd once been lectured about my place in their family. The irony was perfect. "How?" was all he managed to say at first. "How what? How did I do it, or how did you not see it coming?" I asked, settling into a chair that had once intimidated me. Now it felt like a throne. "Both. All of it." He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I remembered from our marriage. "God, Emma, what have we done?" "What have you done?" I corrected. "You stood by while your family destroyed me. You let them treat me like I was nothing, like I was some kind of threat to your precious legacy. Well, congratulations, David. I actually became one." His face crumpled with genuine remorse. "I was weak. I was a coward. I should have protected you, should have stood up to them, should have. Should have, could have, would have," I interrupted. "But you didn't. Do you know what that taught me? That I could only rely on myself. That I had to become strong enough to protect myself because no one else would." "I never stopped loving you," he said quietly, and those words hit me harder than I expected. "Not for a single day. Sarah. She's what my mother wanted, what the family expected. But she's not you. She could never be you." For a moment, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with. Vulnerable, honest, real. But then I remembered the pain, the humiliation, the nights I'd cried myself to sleep wondering why I wasn't enough. Love without action is just words, David. You loved me, but you loved their approval more. I know, he whispered. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But Emma, please. Is there any chance, any possibility that we could? That we could what? I stood up, smoothing my dress. That I could forget 2 years of rebuilding myself from the ashes of what you all left behind. That I could pretend your family's racism didn't cut me to my core. That I could trust you to choose me when it matters. He looked broken, and part of me, the part that still remembered loving him, wanted to comfort him. But I'd learned something these past 2 years. My worth wasn't determined by anyone's ability to see it. You want another chance? Yes. Then earn it. Walking back into that ballroom after leaving David in the corner felt like stepping into a completely different world. The same people who had once whispered about me behind their champagne flutes were now approaching with newfound respect, business cards appearing like magic, investment opportunities suddenly materializing from thin air. It's amazing how quickly attitudes change when you hold the power. But the real moment came when Linda cornered me near the grand staircase, her usual composure finally cracking. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice stripped of its usual condescension. "Money. Revenge. To destroy everything we've built." I looked at this woman who had made my life hell, who had questioned my worth at every turn, who had treated me like an infection in her perfect world. The old me would have wanted to make her suffer. But the woman I'd become, I had something far more powerful than revenge. "I want exactly what you never thought I deserved," I said calmly. "Respect, recognition, and a seat at the table where decisions about this company's future are made." I could see the internal war playing out on her face, her prejudices battling against the reality that I now controlled her family's fate. "The company stays in operation," I continued. "Your employees keep their jobs. Your family legacy continues. But it continues with me as the majority owner, with my vision, and with the understanding that the old ways of doing business, the exclusion, the prejudice, the assumption that worth is determined by skin color or social pedigree, those days are over." Jessica had appeared at her mother's side, looking younger and more uncertain than I'd ever seen her. "And David?" she asked quietly. I smiled, but there was steel behind it. "David is going to have to prove that he's the man I once believed he could be. Not through grand gestures or pretty words, but through actions. Real change. If he wants any chance of earning back what he threw away, he's going to have to show me that he's finally learned what it means to stand up for what's right." As I made my way toward the exit, David appeared one last time, his eyes desperate and pleading. "Emma, please. Tell me there's hope." I paused at the door, turning back to look at him one final time. "There's always hope, David. But hope requires change, and change requires courage. The question is, do you finally have enough?" I walked out of that ballroom the same way I'd entered, like royalty. But this time I wasn't just playing the part. I was living it. 6 months later, David would start showing up at my office building, not as the entitled heir I'd once known, but as a man genuinely trying to prove he'd learned from his mistakes. He began supporting the social justice causes I championed, speaking out against the very prejudices his family had embodied. But my decision about whether to let him back into my heart, that story was still being written. And that's how a woman who was once told she didn't belong anywhere ended up owning everything. Can you even imagine the look on their faces when they realized the gold digger they dismissed had become the golden empress who held their entire future in her hands? But here's what gets me every single time I think about this story. It wasn't really about the money or the power or even the sweet taste of justice. It was about something so much deeper than that. It was about a woman who refused to let other people's limitations become her reality. When they tried to make her small, she decided to become magnificent instead. Now I know what you're thinking. Should Emma give David another chance? Is love enough to overcome years of betrayal and weakness? Or are some wounds just too deep to heal, no matter how much someone changes? Honestly, I go back and forth on this myself. Part of me wants to see him prove that people can genuinely transform. But another part of me thinks Emma deserves someone who would have chosen her from the very beginning. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I genuinely want to know where you stand on this. Are you team give love another chance? Or team some bridges are meant to stay burned? And while you're down there, tell me what part of this story hit you the hardest. Was it the moment she revealed her empire? Or when she walked out leaving him to chase after her? If this story gave you chills like it gave me, if you felt that surge of satisfaction when karma came knocking, then you absolutely need to smash that like button right now. And listen, if you subscribe to this channel, you're getting yourself a front row seat to more incredible stories of justice, transformation, and people who refuse to stay down when life tries to knock them out. Trust me when I say we've got more jaw-dropping tales coming your way. Stories that will make you believe in the power of resilience, the beauty of self-worth, and the absolute magic that happens when someone decides to rewrite their own story. Because at the end of the day, that's what this was really about. Not revenge, but rebirth. Not destruction, but the kind of construction that builds something even more beautiful from the ashes of what was broken. So hit that notification bell because you're not going to want to miss what's coming next.